This is AutoSave, a book club for video games, and we are diving into Final Fantasy VII Rebirth with our special guest, Steve Vegvari. We are going to tackle Chapter 1, A Fallen Hero, and let's see who's fallen down today. Hello and welcome to AutoSave, and we are starting out our journey into Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. And of course, I'm joined, as always, by my co-host, Camille Salazar-Hadaway.
It's a reunion.
But move over her because we have Steve Vegvari in the studio as our special guest. Steve, how are you?
I'm doing really well. Thank you guys for having me in the studio for this very exciting episode. I can't wait to talk about Rebirth with you guys.
Yes.
It's going to be a lot of fun.
So,
it's going to be so good.
If anyone doesn't know who you are, what you do, give them a little shout out.
Sure. I am a freelance content writer. I write for a number of Canadian publications like iPhone in Canada, Mobile Syrup, Console Creatures. I'm also on Mashable and stuff like that. I also host a number of podcasts, including the Creature Cast and a gaming podcast. I wonder what kind of content I make.
Yeah. It's like a gaming podcast. Do you like games?
Maybe. Every so often,
Yeah,
I'll
I
talk
thought so.
about them.
I think we like podcasts on the show too, right?
Yeah, we're
And you guys are in a
podcasters.
podcast together.
A gaming podcast.
Yes. Cam, I'm sorry, but how are you doing today?
Well, Nick, I kind of feel bad because I was trying to do the whole reunion thing.
And I cut it
And
off.
You cut it off. So I'm glad that we are reunited. It has been, it feels like it's been a while, but it really hasn't been a while.
It has been a while since we did Final Fantasy Remake.
Well, yeah, since we've done that. But we've done other games.
We have, yeah. How does this podcast work?
What is this again? See, it's been a while.
It has been a while, but I'm glad to see you both. Thank you for joining us. It's me. Thank you for joining me. Before we get into the gameplay today, I want to talk about this is the second game of this trilogy of games. We played Remake.
Yeah.
Just wanted to know your opinion on why maybe we're playing this sequel. This is the second sequel we played. We played Spider-Man 2.
Yeah.
But in your opinion, why are we playing this game?
Well, I think we like great games here.
Yes.
And Remake was a great game. Like, we couldn't stop talking about it, how it ended. It had such a cliffhanger. I feel like we would do a disservice to everyone listening if we didn't play the next one.
Yeah.
And then you listen to this series, so then we can do the one after that.
We have to.
We have to
right?
convince it.
That's the only thing I always think about sometimes is like, how many sequels do we do if we already recorded the first game of a series, right? I feel like most of the time we have to cover them unless it's maybe, Gotham Knights or something like that.
I think are we lazy, Nick? Wait, do we just want to do games that we know? Wait a second, and love? No, honestly, I think this is a game. Remake was a game everybody was talking about.
Yep.
It's very hard to rebrand. I was making a joke about rebranding yourself, but rebrand a franchise and also do its service to its original fans. And Remake, it is clear it's done that. Right. So it's only right that we're curious to jump right into it. And honestly, I think we're gonna have a good time. I'll hold back the reunion. Am I on 4 now? 4 counts for this?
There's 4. There's also, we're going to get like a Sephiroth.
I was already ready. I was already ready to do it.
But Steve, you are notoriously not as big of a Final Fantasy fan, but you've played Remake and you've played Rebirth. I just want to get your opinion as someone who normally doesn't jump into Final Fantasy. What is for casual gamers now, because Final Fantasy changed from a turn-based game to now more, I don't know.
It's like more like an action RPG.
Yeah.
Yes. Since then, like for someone who normally doesn't play these games, like how do you take this series?
Well, first off, very bold move for bringing me onto the show to talk about this. I know at some point someone in your audience is going to get fed up with me and is going to get very angry. No. It always happens. I'm totally okay with it. But no, I generally don't have a great history with Final Fantasy because of its turn-based nature. I often find it just kind of bogs down the gameplay experience. But Final Fantasy Remake was the first time where I was like, oh, I get why people love this series. And it's largely because of the universe, it's the characters. Yep. So coming into Rebirth, I was very excited for it because it was, let's get this ensemble cast back together and take it away and see what this game can do running on PlayStation 5 exclusively rather than being like a PS4 game brought over.
Yeah.
So there was a lot for me coming into it where I was genuinely excited, despite the fact that I just don't like the older Final Fantasy games.
Yeah.
Like, I think Steve just said it, like, why we're doing it. It's grabbing the attention of all these different gamers that would be outside of this fandom or like this type of game. And it's because of how they tell the story, the character design, the environment, the world it's built. But I just have to also say, I recently went on a trip to Tokyo during the release of Rebirth, hence why we had to kind of delay our record of this. I'm sorry.
We did, yeah.
But everything there, like, was Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. I'm talking, I went to Tokyo Tower just to see the tower, go up the tower. On the posters, it's all Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Characters are spread out throughout the tower and the buildings. In Shibuya Crossing, they had a Red 13 advertisement, the 3D advertisement. So it's like this is like a cultural event.
It is.
We got to get in it.
We normally do our gameplays exclusively in segment 2, but because some weird stuff happens at the beginning, we're gonna start in segment 1.
Oh, whoa.
Yes.
Whoa.
Isn't it weird?
You're flipping it.
I'm changing it.
What's happening?
It's because my producer told me. Well, guess what? We're in for a loop to start the game because there's a cutscene that happens, and I still don't know what's happening.
I'm here on the Midgar Expressway. The scene is indescribable. Countless buildings have been leveled, and part of the road has collapsed. The smoke rising from the rubble is reminiscent of a funeral pyre. Of course, this is only the most recent in a series of crises. Multiple reactor bombings, followed by the fall of the Sector 7 plate, culminating in this unprecedented destruction, caused by a massive tornado which swept through Sectors 0, 1, and 2. After a briefing with Shinra investigators, Mayor Domino released a statement declaring the tornado to be, quote, weather warfare, perpetrated by the infamous insurgent group known as Avalanche. The administration also suspects the involvement of Wutai and has begun investigations into the matter.
So, at first, again, if you didn't remember what happened at Remake, there is a giant montage of everything that happened. We see Cloud and the group, they fight Sephiroth in Sector 7. It creates a giant explosion. They end up getting framed by Shinra, saying that there was a terrorist attack from Avalanche with the help of Wutai, and the Sector 7 plate collapses. However, they say it's some sort of tornado.
Yeah. Well, there was the see, this is the thing.
There was
the tornado.
Yes.
I skipped the story so far, which I suggest you do not skip, because you'll be lost like I was for the first few chapters. But yeah, there was the tornado.
Yep.
That's what happened, right? And then that path was opened up with Aerith and Cloud and everyone
to the other dimension.
to
and that's
other
where they fight
dimension,
Sephiroth, and
something.
then a feather goes down and he smiles at them and he's like,
Oh,
see
he
you
looks
later.
so good. Yeah.
I'll remember Cloud.
Yeah.
Well.
Oh, that's a pretty good Sephiroth.
That
Thank
was
you.
pretty good.
That was quality. What?
But we see Zack, by the way. So this is where everything is kind of up in the air. We see Zack with Cloud. He's carrying Cloud. We don't know exactly what's happening. In the second news report we see survivors, but we're not really sure who the survivors are because it's Barrett, we don't really know if the survivors are dead or alive. We see Barrett, Red, and Tifa.
Yeah.
And their arms are kind of like flopping over.
Yeah. And Aerith. We see
Aerith is there as
Aerith,
well.
right?
Yes. Yeah. So are they dead? Are they alive? I know that they call them survivors, but I'm kind of confused at this whole situation.
Yeah.
Right.
I was kind of like, they're alive, right? Like, they're not just gonna have them die right there. Right? Like, they ain't gonna do that to us. But then, and maybe you're gonna talk about this.
Yeah.
But then, like, you see this moment between Zack, right?
Yep.
And Aerith, and I was like, oh crap, are they dead?
So you're going ahead a little bit, but yes, that's the question we have. But we are at a point, and if the audience doesn't know who Zack is, he's a character from the original that is dead before the game even starts.
Yeah.
And we get some sort of introduction.
He's a character in name. You don't actually like...
Right, you don't even know who he is. It's only in the expanded universe that we kind of know who Zack is, but he's kind of like there to only tell a story with Cloud.
Yeah.
So now we're seeing a whole different universe here, because at the end of Remake, we see that they're okay, everyone's alive, they go on into the world, everything's happy hunky-dory, and now we're in an alternate universe where Zack is dealing with all these characters who are...
By the way, when Zack appears, so Zack is carrying Cloud, which is from, Remake, the end of Remake. We see him carrying Cloud, which, if you've played those games, you know that that's kind of like what was hinted at before in telling of the story. So we're actually seeing that here. And he just like throws Cloud on, on what's the newspaper? Kyrie.
Yeah.
On Kyrie, and she's like, wait, what? But
Yeah.
she's also looking at Zack and looking at Cloud, and she's met Cloud in our
our
remake,
universe
in
that we're
Remake,
talking about, yeah.
right? So it's like, I don't know what's happening there.
So the way I interpret it, and again, I'm coming at it from like a very ground level view because of how much I'm not, privy to the whole series as a whole. But that being said, the way I keep interpreting is that we are looking at some sort of multiverse kind of situation, because if you do remember at the end of Remake, they show, Zack and Cloud walking, and you see the chip bag with the different dog on it.
Yeah, the Wu Tai, the mascot for Wu Tai,
The dog that's shown in their universe is a different one than we're seeing in ours as we're playing through Remake. And my interpretation is that now we're seeing, a universe in which Zack is alive. He fended off the Shinra guards and everything, and then got to the city where, Tifa and Barrett and everyone were involved in the tornado and then ended up dying because Cloud wasn't there.
Exactly. And we do actually see that dog at the beginning in the news report. You see the poster of that same dog in the other universe there. So we know that's still happening. But then is the Sector 7 plate falling a canon event no matter what universe you're in?
I mean, I think so, because I'm just trying to wrap my head around the fact that, so if Cloud's not there, I assume that Avalanche, with Barrett and everyone, they're still doing their thing.
Yeah.
Regardless if Cloud's there. I just don't understand who would be, Cloud's replacement. How
did Aerith get introduced?
Sure,
to
there's
them?
a lot of questions.
How did the group come together? So I wonder if that's a plot hole or if we're gonna get filled in.
It is funny because even in the trailers leading up to this release, we saw that newsreel, and I was like, oh, they're getting framed for this whole thing, and they probably like Shinra planted bodies and everything. That's where like my head went. I was like, oh, they're so deep
you're
on
like
this.
Shinra is going deep.
Hojo's doing some stuff.
Crazy stuff. But then we get this. I was like, oh, it's recontextualized. I kind of understand where we're looking at this. We're looking at this through a lens of a whole different universe than what we're actively playing as with Cloud and the whole gang. So I think we're seeing two parallel universes where there was a flip of a coin, and now Zack's alive in one, while the core timeline we're playing in, Zack's probably dead, if I had to assume.
Yeah. I feel like we have to like label them the Cloud timeline and the Zack timeline.
Yeah.
This is all making sense too now. How Zack dies in the original is what we saw at the end of 7 Remake.
But no, flipped.
What do you mean?
Because how in Remake, when Cloud is being carried.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But that's a different...
Carrying Cloud is the same thing.
And then he goes off.
And there is still only one Buster Sword.
Yeah.
The way I kind of interpret it is that there's 3 timelines that we're looking at currently. There's the original 1997 timeline.
Yeah.
For reasons I think we'll get into later in the show. I have some tinfoil hat moment for you guys. And then there's the Remake timeline. And then there's the Zack Still Alive timeline. So I think that we're looking at 3 different timelines that will kind of we'll have some cross intersection at some points. I don't know.
All right. See, I'm already spending way too much time on this segment
I know.
just based on our theories.
Our producer Dylan's like looking over the monitor like, guys.
Come on. All right, so we get to a point where Zack sees Aerith, and now he's running to try and save her, I guess, which is where we start our tutorial mission. We fight some soldiers.
We play as Zack.
Yeah.
Like, what?
I know. But for me, I don't know if he's cooler than Cloud.
He's
but
faster than
I like
Cloud.
his black hair over the blonde hair, I'll be honest, right?
He's faster than Cloud.
Yes.
I mean, he's not as moody, it doesn't seem like.
Yeah, he's not as moody. You're right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we do find Aerith. He grabs her. He leaves Red, which I'm very upset about.
He does
because-
thank Red, though. He
Sure.
leaves, but
Bye.
Yeah.
But then that's at that moment is what made me think, oh crap, are they actually dead?
So it's the point where Aerith drops her materia and her hand slinks over, where that's
when it
acceptance
kind
in
of-
my head where, okay, maybe they are dead.
Oh,
it.
okay.
Okay.
But again, we'll get into this because as things go forward, we're not entirely sure that they are dead. But it's confusing because some of the characters are now, I guess they're going to go to prison if they're
Well,
not.
I mean, they're probably dead because Hojo's going to get their hands on them.
Right,
So
one way or the other.
Yeah.
if they're dead or alive right now.
So like I said, we get an emotional scene with her materia drop from her arms, and it goes to black. And we go back to the original timeline with Cloud and the gang. So deep breath. I'm not sure what we're going to witness today, but this game is going to get very interesting in a narrative standpoint. So we're going to try to break it down as much as possible. But question of the day, I want to get both of your opinions on what do you want to expect in this game, or what are you expecting? For me, I know that with Rebirth, this is kind of they're putting the game on its head. It's not necessarily the old game you remember.
Yeah.
They're taking more liberties. It could get very weird, which I'm excited for. But like for me specifically, I want to see more Honeybee Inn type stuff, some more musical numbers,
More hand massages. I know where your head's
You
going.
said it, not me.
You were thinking it.
Yes, I was. But Steve, I'll go with you first. What are you kind of like hoping to see in this game?
I think you nailed it on the head in that I expect the unexpected at this point. We know coming off of Remake that now everything's kind of blown up. Like this isn't the traditional Remake. We're not going to follow the exact story beat by beat at this point. So I'm expecting some familiarity, but I'm also expecting drastic veering off the paved path. And realistically, I think I just want a solid second act for this trilogy. We already know it's going to be a trilogy. So let's get to a point where there's going to be a big emotional beat at the end, and for all of us to be like,
Yeah.
well, that just happened, and then Square Enix can kind of come back to us with a final entry and then kind of just close off the story. Because I think for me, every good second act of a trilogy always has that great emotional beat, whether it's, you know, the hero's kind of losing or something like that.
Yep.
You know, that typical archetype. So I'm kind of expecting that, but I just don't know what it's going to be, despite the baggage that, you know, the original Final Fantasy VII has.
Yeah.
So who knows what's going to happen? I'm excited for some
Expect the
surprises.
Yes.
I guess like before, if you're listening to this or you're watching this, spoilers ahead from this point, because if you have not played Remake, pause, go back, listen to our series on Remake, so then you're caught up to date with everything that's happening if you haven't played. What I'm looking forward to, Nick, what the heck happened at the end of Remake? Why is Zack back?
Yeah.
Is there different universes? Like, how are they explaining that? Because that was just like, huh? Like, what? I think also, you know, we heard Square Enix talk about the fact that, you know, they've done a lot of Final Fantasy games, but for some reason, there's something about Final Fantasy VII that just really sits with a lot of fans across the board, whether that is the characters, the environments. I can't even say gameplay, because across their games, the gameplay is pretty much the same, right?
Yeah.
So what is it that makes us fall in love with these characters and the stories that they're going to be told? Well, they don't have to convince us. We've already fallen in love with them, whether you played Remake, or you just watch Sephiroth and a poster of him,
Yeah.
or you played the original, right? So how are they going to make us fall in love again, right? Keep that energy alive in us fans and make it new.
Yep.
I'm excited about that. For myself, I've played the original, but it was like, back in the day, you're at your cousin's house and you play together. So it's like I've played, but I didn't play.
Yeah.
I've watched them play. I've played a little parts here and there. So a little bit is like jumbled up. So even playing through, I'm like, wait, what happened in the original? So I want to see that flip. I want to see how they're going to make it new. I'm also curious because of the success of Remake, and obviously they know they're doing this 3-act thing. What are they setting us up for after this telling? Are they setting us up to bring these characters in another telling of Final Fantasy? I think that's something that fans have been wanting for a very long time. I need answers, Nick. I need answers.
Well, I don't know if you've seen Advent Children, but
Yes.
it gets very convoluted.
Yeah.
Again, like a lot of some of these stories in Final Fantasy, like Kingdom Hearts is the same thing. Like you start to wonder, like, what the hell is going on? So I don't know. I wanted to say too, I really hope that nobody dies because I am so attached to these characters.
Right.
We know a certain character dies in the original halfway through.
Yeah.
I'm hoping nothing happens. And that's why I'm really excited to see where it goes.
I think they still have to do it. They still have to do it to a degree. If it's not that character, another character. I think for every great story, you have to suffer a loss to go through those emotions. You'd be crying if it's Tifa.
I would.
I kind of agree with you. I just don't know, like, conceptually what that would be, because I mean, that death arguably is one of the most iconic moments in video game history.
Yes.
Like, it almost is a Darth Vader "I am your father" moment where
Yeah.
I don't think that anyone listening to this doesn't know what we're even referencing, but just in case. But that being said, I fail to even wrap my head around what would have the same emotional weight. Especially, this is a longer game. We're spending more time with these characters and everything. But right now, I still don't know, like, what could they do to change our expectations while still delivering that same gut punch moment.
Hey, I'm gonna say it right now. And I haven't played through the whole game, so I don't even know if I'm gonna be predicting my future in the series and what I feel. But I think the thing would be hitting with like Cloud or Zack, like suffering that. Like, now that you introduce Zack as a playable character, what does that mean for Cloud? And if you've played the old, what does that mean? We know if you're an old fan, who Cloud thinks he is and who Zack is and all that. And it's like, can you have two? And I think that's the question that a lot of fans were left with at the end of Remake. It's like, wait, how are there firstly two Clouds and how is Zack back?
Yep.
Well, we don't. Is there two Clouds? Is there multiple? Is there an infinite universe?
I don't know.
Is it a multiverse?
I don't know.
I think there's a good conversation to have with that.
I think you guys are right too in terms of death and loss. I think it would be pretty lame because what I'm afraid of is the whispers. And then in one timeline, everybody dies. But then in this timeline, everyone survives.
Well, see, that's what I don't want. I think there has to be loss in, if there's different timelines, there has to be loss in every timeline. I think it's kind of like, the Uncle Ben effect for Spider-Man. Like, there has to be some sort of loss in every timeline. Like, that is a moment that cannot be moved, no matter how you may want it to play out. And it's like, maybe it's setting us up to put that decision in our hands. Oh my gosh. Don't do that. Don't do that, Square. Square Enix, don't do that.
But after the break, we dive into Cloud's story where we left off since the last game, where the group is heading into the greater world after the battle with Sephiroth in Midgard. Cloud is in the process of telling Barrett, Aerith, and Red a story about Sephiroth and Tifa in the past. So we're going to find out.
Seeing as we've got the time, want to tell the rest of us about you and your buddy Sephiroth?
Sure, if Tifa doesn't mind.
Me? Yeah, no problem. It's cool.
It all started 5 years ago, was 16 at the time. There was hardly any work for soldiers back then, and what little there was boring as hell. My heart wasn't in it. Then, out of nowhere, the job of a lifetime came. A mission with Sephiroth. I couldn't believe my luck.
So it's chapter 1, Fall of a Hero, and I'm really giddy here in this point because we get to see Sephiroth firsthand with Cloud.
Oh, so good.
However, my mind goes to him being 16 and being a soldier. And I don't know why, because there's this big scene with Sephiroth. You get to see Sephiroth. Yeah. We're going to get to play as Sephiroth. But in my mind, I keep thinking, why is he 16 as a soldier? And that he's already like gone up the ranks. So how old are you when you start in the military for Shinra?
Well, I already
at least 12.
What do you mean 12? I thought they'd take him right away. It's Shinra, they're jerks. But like I with this conversation with Tifa in Remake, I always thought that he was very young when he left the village. So I wasn't too surprised by the 16-year-old soldier. Also, it's Shinra, so
true. So Cloud explains obviously to the group that he's retelling the story of what happens with him and Sephiroth. That's where we get to see Sephiroth for the first time on this buggy, whatever it is.
This cart buggy. Also, Cloud is very talkative. Where was this in Remake?
Just a chatty Cathy as soon as he gets out of Midgar.
I think he's been through some stuff, guys. I think maybe that's
all
why.
the walls are down now, I guess.
He's like trauma loading on his friends now.
Plus, every time that he does maybe, try to reach out and have a good conversation, he gets his static thing where he's just like, what's happening? So that's what happens. Anyway.
The static is gone.
We get to see our first playthrough with Sephiroth where we get to play as him. How did you feel getting to play, especially with that giant katana?
Sephiroth.
Oh yeah, it's the music. The music is so good for his track is so good. But yeah, as soon as you get to kind of like flip the script and then start playing as Sephiroth, immediately I was like, Cloud, you're not that cool. I'm sorry.
Right.
You're just not him, And
we start to see it through Sephiroth's lens. It's like, you want to be me, but you're not.
But I think it really does a great wonder to put the player in that perspective, because the entire time you're supposed to believe Sephiroth is supposed to be this larger than life soldier. Everyone looks up to him in his heyday. And up until that point, I was like, well, but why? I mean, sure, he's a good-looking dude and everything, and he's got the swagger. But in terms of being a soldier, someone that Cloud would grow up and be, bright-eyed for, I never really believed it until you get into that battle and start seeing the rapport between the two. I was like, oh, now I understand why Cloud has gone through vying for this character.
Yeah. Also, like, I feel like they're realizing maybe some limits to their character development in the original one. Like, you already have a character that's very mopey, brooding all the time, Cloud, right? And Sephiroth kind of mirrors that, right? When you look at the original, even in Remake, right? So I think having us play as Sephiroth and then having that banter between the two, and it's like a big brother, little brother scenario, which it never really clicked to me in the original, right? It does make, the situation at present really, really horrible. And now I could kind of understand why Cloud was so, depressed and like brooding. It wasn't just the fact that he's kind of lost with these visions or whatever, the static that's happening. It's like he's mourning the loss of his brother.
Yeah.
Wow. That's really deep.
Put it on a poster.
Being young, obviously, Cloud is very eager, and the mission is to survey a rundown reactor. The reactor is in Nibelheim, where Cloud grew up, so hopefully we'll be able to get some more of a backstory with him. After that, though, once we fight with Sephiroth, we enter the town of Nibelheim, and Sephiroth briefly talks about his mother, Jenova. Now, if you remember, something that we learned from Remake, Jenova is the ancient that Shinra has experimented on. Sephiroth also took her away in that game. So Maybe some foreshadowing here, obviously.
And we don't know, like, he doesn't say who his father is outright to Cloud when Cloud asks.
But he doesn't. It sounds like he doesn't know.
I felt like he did know.
I didn't get that at all.
Really?
Personally, I didn't. I
Yes.
felt like his whole like maybe there's just a chunk of his life that he doesn't really remember or quite understand
Right.
until he gets to that
Okay.
point.
Yes.
And then he starts having that realization
he's like,
oh,
oh.
let's do the mental math here.
Oh, because it's how he said, like, he doesn't answer Cloud's question fully, because that's also like conflict of interest. You're like this hero, and like you're one of your bosses is your dad, kind of thing. It's like that's kind of the vibe I got, because then immediately he starts talking down about Hojo after Cloud asked that question.
Sure.
So I guess maybe it was actually the game setting us up to see the kind of the weirdness of the fact that like he kind of hates this guy, but it's also his father.
All right. So Cloud gets some time to explore his hometown, and he goes to his mom's house first. But we get a very weird scene here.
Wait, did you go into his mom's? Do you have you have an option?
You have an option?
Because it's like you're at the door, and it said yeah or no.
Did you click no?
I clicked yeah.
I clicked no.
What?
So you didn't see?
No. No, I have no.
See,
Yeah.
this is
I
where
didn't
my
even
mind
know.
bended. Okay, because as soon as they gave that option, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm not the person that looks up online. Like, I don't want to be that person. Like, if a decision I make is integral to the story,
Right.
but I clicked yeah because I was like, well, I want to see his mom.
Yeah, but then I was like, but Cloud wouldn't. So I was like,
wouldn't he?
I don't think he would.
At a 16-year-old,
I thought he would.
At a 16-year-old, he would. If it's Cloud now, he wouldn't.
Sure.
See, so that's why I said yes.
Okay.
Is
So
that
what happened to you? What happened for
Nothing.
you?
You just keep going.
so? In my head, I clicked yes because I thought it would be a situation where if you click no, it'll be like, I'll come back later.
Oh no, I just thought Cloud would do it. That's why I clicked yeah.
I didn't know that you just lose it altogether.
No, as far as I recall, like going through it, yeah.
Interesting.
Well,
Yeah, 'cause
let
you-
us fill him in what
Yeah,
happened.
please.
Okay, so we get some weird green static from Cloud's memory. It leaves a lot of blanks. Basically, he goes in to see his mom. His mom says, Cloud, how are you? Whatever. And then,
In that voice.
yeah, and then,
Really selling it.
and then as he's talking about it, I guess it kind of goes back to the present where he's talking about it in a third person.
Yeah.
But
and then
then-
it like cuts to him back at his mom's.
Yes, and it keeps this. So the static keeps happening. It shows him like lying on the bed.
Yeah.
It shows his mom's asking him questions.
Trying to like feed him food, telling him to stay healthy and all this stuff.
But it's all like ripped apart. Nothing
Got it,
seems
okay.
very cohesive, and then it just ends. And
then
so,
it's like you're outside the door.
yeah, and then that's it.
Okay, so that's essentially the whole experience. If you just hit no, you just turn around and then
Yes.
you go to your other objectives. Yeah.
Can
Okay.
you go back and like do that?
I
Make
don't
that
know.
decision again?
I don't think
This is what kills
Okay.
me about this
Yeah,
game
I
because
don't
there are
know.
decisions, and I have looked online. There are decisions where I'm just like, I have to make the right call. And it's not like Mass Effect or something where it's just like, I'll make a decision, whatever happens, happens. This one, it's like, I have 2 seconds to answer. What do I say? Is this going to affect something? And clearly, you didn't get
Right,
a cutscene.
Already doing a great job with this game. I love that.
So I guess, Cam, to ask you a question about this cutscene is this trying to explain to the audience what this means as a character for Cloud, because he doesn't like talking about his past very often, and as he starts to talk about his past to his friends, it gets very cloudy. Oh, sorry,
Pun intended.
I didn't even.
I know
I
you
didn't even
didn't,
mean
but
to.
pun intended. I think when we finished Remake on the podcast, we kind of settled that static was like just like maybe information that wasn't there or he's not
Sure.
supposed to see. Like his
Yes.
I think that's what we settled on,
Yeah.
like what our understanding of what that is. So when you go see his mom, she is so happy. She doesn't like hug him or anything like that. He doesn't hug her. Like he still seems disconnected, and you can take it as like a 16-year-old being a brat.
Yep.
Which Cloud definitely shows like bratish
Energy.
personality traits, right? So I kind of took it as like something is off with the mother. I question this scene because she is so like Stepford wife.
So, okay, I don't want to get too much into this, but I feel that's the case because I don't know if he ran away, but he left at a very young age.
Yeah.
And she was kind of taken aback that he was there. But yeah, it's very cold. Everything, but it's from him as well.
Yeah. But then I question, like, did this actually happen?
Right.
But then I have to remind, because like at this point I'm questioning everything. I'm trying to remember things. I'm trying to figure out what's going on. But then I have to remember his mom does exist. Tifa knows his mom.
Yes.
They were in the village. So I'm like,
Yes.
I guess this happened, right? Like, but there's something in this moment, maybe trauma that was there that he's blocking out. So that's what I settled on.
Well, after exploring, we get to the part of the story where Tifa enters.
We leave once our guide arrives.
Yes, sir.
Brian!
Sephiroth, sir, I must insist that I take you up the mountain. My daughter isn't...
Dad!
Tifa, you can still back out. You don't have to do this.
I'm going, and that's that. There'll be 2 soldiers with me. I'll be fine.
Pumpkin!
Good morning, sir. I'll be your guide for the day.
Tifa? You're our guide?
I sure am. You can ask anyone around here. I'm the best there is.
You could get hurt.
Not if you remember to do your job, she won't. Come on.
Yeah, you get that picture.
There's a good moment here with.
Sorry. He's so beautiful.
Did you want the picture?
I would have loved that picture. Just cut out Cloud, cut out Tifa, just have Sephiroth.
This is a moment where we get to see not the real Sephiroth, but who he was before everything transpired. Yes, he's still a little weird, but he's still kind of personable.
Yeah, he's attractive. I mean, his personality's attractive. Like, he was kind of a little part of me is like, oh, do I like the bad guy? Like, he's really a jerk.
Right.
But now I'm like, he wasn't always a jerk, guys.
No.
He wasn't always a jerk. No, but he's like, you're seeing that hero that everyone is making him out to be. Even like you see the villagers when you're walking around before this point, they're saying, oh my God, Sephiroth's
right.
here. They're waiting outside the inn. He's a celebrity, and he got canceled.
True.
But before the cancellation,
He got canceled, yeah. Cancel
If you
culture
want to
strikes
great.
Sephiroth. Yeah.
I think canceling is different than murdering people. But it's
okay,
okay.
yeah.
Tifa in a cowboy outfit, yay or nay?
I like it.
Big yay, yeah.
Oh, and you hear like her dad, like
Pumpkin, yeah.
Oh, it's so sweet.
It's a nice relationship, yeah.
Yeah.
She's also like, you could see she has something to prove. Right?
Exactly.
She's like, I have to do this mission for me.
Exactly. That's one of my favorite parts. Like, we're not even that well into the story yet, and just going around this village, I don't know if you two did, you hear a little bit about the whispers of Cloud and Tifa, and like you hear the villagers be like, oh my gosh, is that Cloud Strife? Wow, you've gotten so big. You even see this lady who she gives you a sandwich that like apparently Cloud used to like as a kid, and he scarfs it down in like 3 or 4 bites.
Didn't get that cutscene.
He doesn't digest the food. I was like, oh, slow down there. I ate 2 sandwiches. It's Cloud. But you're seeing this relationship, and you also meet someone who is training. I forgot his name. Xander, something like that. Yeah, who is training Tifa and talking about Tifa. So like you're getting a little bit of knowledge of like, okay, they were really close friends. If you decide to go up to the water tower or whatever, you'll understand that. But then you're also understanding that it's been time, and they've both been, training in some sense and maturing.
Right, yeah. They just had that, time of separation, and now they have come together where they led 2 different lives for so long, and now they kind of have to get reacquainted. A reunion, if you will.
A reunion.
Speaking of Tifa, she leads us to the reactor in a great scenic walkthrough with the main theme running in the background. So in case you wanted some
Opening
nostalgia.
credits rolling.
It just
so
felt
beautiful.
so good.
Yeah.
Along the way, we fight a plethora of monsters. We get to use a Mako vacuum or Mako vacuum, which is love doing
It's
those
like a
daily
Zamboni,
tasks.
but like, you know, or like, you know, the full floor polishers. I was like,
yeah.
That was.
and the cord has to, like, it's actually short sometimes.
Yep.
So you have to find ways to, like,
I was already
reach
just
the
like,
area.
here we go. And now here's our filler type missions
Yeah.
already. But we also scale along a giant bridge,
Mm-hmm.
which, as you know, something bad is always going to happen.
Of course.
In a suspension bridge that is overlooking water.
and when Tifa says, oh, I'm really nervous about crossing this bridge.
Why would you be?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Uh-huh.
Well, it collapses. Sephiroth, he plays the hero and saves everyone except for one soldier.
Which hysterical. Could you imagine being that soldier and just like, oh, cool.
He
All
also stares at the soldier
Yeah.
as he goes by.
But when he stares, he does look disappointed.
How
That
do you know?
because Sephiroth, not the soldier, not the we can't see the trooper. 'cause
No,
he's
I
wearing
know
his helmet.
Sephiroth, but are you just saying
No,
that?
because okay, there's a few things that also make me believe he really was a soldier at
Yes.
this point and like actually was trying to do good.
Yeah.
He sees while they're hanging off the bridge that it's going to fall.
Right.
And he decides to let go to try to get to the bottom first. I don't know, like I'm not a soldier, you know. I don't know if he was trying to delay it breaking and like maybe all them falling, or
I'm
he
not
wanted
sure.
to get there first to try to grab people. He decides to do that. He grabs Tifa, okay? The trooper, the other one that he saves, he grabs, and the one that he stares at, he does look disappointed. You run that
I'm
tape.
I'm
He
good.
looks disappointed,
Yeah.
and then he also ends up looking for that person.
I think that's why he might be a hero at this point in the game, because I think he might be a little calculated, but it looks like he's trying to save the bigger group, even though he knew that he probably couldn't save everybody.
Sure.
Yeah, maybe.
But I just can't get over the image of your last moments alive. You're floating down and you just see the person who let you go just staring at you in the eyes. That's the last thing you see.
I wouldn't have wanted to have it another way if it's Sephiroth.
Yeah, she's probably like, wow, he's so handsome.
Yeah, it's like
I can't be mad
goes
at
down
him.
the waterfall. Yeah,
He's so dreamy.
he's so dreamy.
Tifa doesn't know exactly how to get to the reactor from where they fell, so it's time for Sephiroth to join the party with Cloud, and he gets a performance review, Cloud does, from Sephiroth for the first time as we fight our way to the top until we see a giant Mako shard.
A Mako spring.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, but if we keep using Mako to power our homes, springs like this will disappear, right?
What are you talking about? Who told you that?
My dad. And the mayor, if you must know.
Except the planet's huge. Mako will never run out, right?
Naturally formed materia. And look at the size of it. Astounding. For the Mako energy to condense into something like this, it must have taken an eternity.
I've always wondered, how does materia let you cast spells exactly?
How did you ever get to be a soldier? To put it simply, the knowledge of the ancients is sealed within each orb. That knowledge not only connects us to the planet, it allows us to tap into her power. That's how we can use magic. Or so they say.
Really? Magic sure is weird.
I know someone who'd be livid to hear you call it weird, or magic for that matter. I can just imagine what he'd say. It's an affront to science.
Who?
Hojo from Research and Development. His predecessor was a great man, but him, he is anything but. We should press on.
During these clips, we are talking about our theories already.
Yeah.
But this scene we highlighted specifically because it's a major theme we see throughout these games, which to me is about saving the planet.
Yeah.
They say in this clip that Mako doesn't last forever. Sephiroth kind of gives them a whole spiel because Cloud is like happy-go-lucky. It's like
He's the rookie.
Doesn't Mako last
Yeah.
forever? And So it's
Great impression.
I love this quirky Cloud, by the way.
Sure.
I don't want to get too sidetracked, but it's nice that he actually talks and isn't like always brooding all the time.
Right.
Well, it shows that development. Like I think sometimes, when we play a game, it's good to see, we see the evil of like the corporation or bad guys, and then you see like the good because you're usually playing as the good characters.
Mm-hmm.
But here what they're setting up is like, not everyone that works for Shinra is trying to be like, an a-hole, like they're not,
Sure.
they're being sold lies, right? And we saw a little bit of that in Remake. But mostly now we're seeing it here with Cloud, where he truly believes in what Shinra's doing.
I think this scene in particular was a great showcase of where Cloud is personally, where he can go 1 minute to dismissing the things that Tifa's saying, immediately turn to Sephiroth, say something, and Sephiroth's like, no, like you're totally wrong. Yeah. So it is this like whole dynamic where you can tell that he thinks he knows it all just because he's been away from home. He's training as a soldier. He comes back. He's like, nah, what do you know, Tifa? And then Sephiroth's like, you don't know everything. Like, let me teach you because I'm still.
And he takes that for word.
Exactly.
Right? So again, that relationship dynamic that they have, right? Like that big brother educating Cloud, on what's what. And you see like Sephiroth, obviously as a hero, probably also knows some shady things that are already happening at Shinra. And he is not necessarily, protesting it outright and loud, but he is just in disagreement with what they do.
Magic's weird.
Magic's weird. How'd you get in?
I don't know. That reminds me of the Harry Potter Prisoner of Azkaban, where he just like flies with the hippogriff after at the end of the game. That's how I feel. Moving forward, up the caves, we get a boss fight. The Materia Garden, where you partner up with Sephiroth and you get a new ability function in this game that was not in Remake, called the Synergy abilities. We'll talk about that later. But how did you find this fight? And also, I'm sure both of you just played as Sephiroth.
Of course. Yeah, of course. Only Sephiroth. Also, Cloud, like, come on. You have a Buster Sword. Use it. Like, why do you keep getting captured by this?
Because he's 16, all right?
Okay. But yeah, I think, like, when you get an opportunity to play as Sephiroth and you're not playing as Sephiroth, you're doing it wrong. That's what I did.
Fair. Yeah, I think that was the one true showcase of this whole chapter, where it is, let's not just show you the same kind of familiar gameplay mechanics here. Let's show something drastically different and something that hopefully we get more of. I think that's really cool that they built an entire gameplay system, like combat system, specifically for Sephiroth, with his own abilities, his whole move set, the way he moves. Like, it's so dynamic and new that it felt very refreshing, especially coming into this game like first blush with that first chapter.
Also, the synergy abilities, the cinematics of it, really beautiful.
So cool. Oh my, the posing.
Yep.
Amazing finishing cutscene, by the way. Sephiroth saves Cloud in the last second. And after that, it cuts to Barrett in present day, who doesn't understand where the story is going because he's like, Sephiroth is this cool, caring character. Where is the evil Sephiroth? Right. But we might find out, things might just go up in flames. I don't know. At the entrance of the reactor, once we get there, Cloud and Sephiroth don't let Tifa go further as we enter the rundown reactor, just the two of them. Sephiroth says, whatever we see here, we are not to speak of it. So we're going to see what happens.
Sketchy.
Cloud also complains that Shinra aren't transparent. So we're seeing some parallels to the real world sometimes.
But he says it very casually, like, Shinra's not transparent. I really think that they should share more information, right? So he's still very naive at this point, right? Like, he doesn't question things further. And I feel like that's also a characteristic, as we'll see later in the chapter, that like he just ain't that smart.
No, like you said, it's naivete, and I think it does go back to, hey, this is a 16-year-old who's just not cut out for this world. He's got a lot to learn, so he's gonna have to learn somehow.
Cloud and Sephiroth then enter a room where weird pods and weird creatures are, and we see a giant door that is the inscription that says Genova. Oh boy. We do as Sephiroth says and turn off the valve outside and then go back to him.
What are you doing?
These pods were built for the production of artificial materia. But Hojo repurposed them as incubators, cages for animals, fused with Mako, all to birth a new breed of monster. But he didn't stop at animals. Oh no. There were other subjects. Look.
Sephiroth.
Ever since I was a child, I knew that I was different, that I was special, but not like this. Not like this. Am I even human?
So this is the big turning point with Sephiroth, where he starts to realize who he could be. We saw when he talked about his mom at the start, he was naive in a sense, where he wasn't burdened by the fact of who his parents were. He just was, he knew he kind of grew up alone, and that was it. And now he's starting to put two and two together that he might have been created. And this is where I think the start of the downfall of Sephiroth.
Right? Yeah. It's crazy because he's having like, you're seeing him so like on this mission of like really disgusted by what Shinra could do, and you know, pretty much cutting up these experiments and everything that Hojo has built in this room, right? And I think he's just doing that because it's like he is very disgusted, and this is the things that he hates, which makes you question like, then why are you still with Shinra, right? But then when he sees that last experiment just on the floor, it clicks, right? And I think you're absolutely right. It's like his whole world is just crumbling down in this moment. I feel so bad for him because it's like now you're question. He's like, who am I? Right. That's really what it is.
Your whole life. It does make me laugh though that it takes to that moment for him to be like, hold up, my mother's name was Genova. Not the fact that there was like a giant plaque above the door. It was let's check out this monster. Yeah. And it's like, hold up a minute.
Right.
Wait a second.
My mother's name.
But then it's like, okay, so if his mother is Genova, and we know Genova is this being that he took away in Remake, doesn't look fully human. No. So where did this idea of Genova being his mother come from prior to, and how, like, who was posing as Genova? Is there pictures of who his mother, who he thought his mother is?
I don't think he knew who it, other than
because she died at birth.
Other than the fact that her name was Genova. Yeah. And he grew up with this whole sense of reality where it was like, oh, you know, your mother's Genova, blah, blah, blah. But he's never seen it, interacted, has no memory of who she is. So it took until getting to that room to be like, oh, I understand now, recontextualizes. And then, you see that mental breakdown.
Yeah.
But he already knew that they experimented on monsters and humans. Like he's telling Cloud this as he knows it.
Yeah.
So you kind of mentioned it and alluded to, he's maybe not really, even though he's a hero, he's not the greatest guy because he's still keeping these secrets of Shinra, and he works for Shinra, but he's disgusted by Shinra, but he's not doing anything.
But he doesn't play, well, he does blame Shinra a little bit before, like we see him cutting down, like, oh, Shinra, when Cloud's talking about Shinra being transparent, right? But he primarily blames Hojo as like the cancer within Shinra, right? So he sees it as like a Hojo thing.
Yeah, because he says it himself when talking about the pods specifically, that those pods are supposed to be used to make artificial material.
Maka.
And so I think for him, I'm just trying to put be in his shoes. He's under the assumption that everything's kind of on the up and up with Shinra, that, hey, they're doing these experiments, but they're not doing them on these people in these pods. It took until getting to that moment where he's walking in, he sees the beings in those pods. He's like, oh, everything's been a lie. Hojo has just been lying to us this entire time. This is the his whole perception of Shinra.
He says he's supposed to be using these as
exactly. That's when the perception starts crumbling down, adding to the fact that now he's trying to figure out what that means for his own life.
Yeah.
Well, guess what? Sephiroth freaks out. He disappears from the inn. No one knows where he is. The Cloud and the villagers then investigate Shinra Mansion because that's where people saw him going. Tifa says that the Shinra company used to research there long before the reactor was made, so this is kind of one of their first ever bases.
And they're still paying rent on it. She says that rent is what's keeping the village alive.
Right. Yeah.
So I'm like, oh, when this abandoned mansion, they're still paying rent on? Not good. They're hiding things.
I like that point because I don't even remember it, but that makes sense because the town kind of looks a little raggedy. Yeah. So poor things. With
the inn's not getting enough business.
After that, Cloud searches the mansion and then he finds Sephiroth in the basement.
Ah, Cloud. I've come across the most fascinating passage. The specimen found in strata dating back 2,000 years smiled with what could only be described as ethereal grace. Though the truth eluded me at first, I later determined that she was an ancient, or a steward of the planet, as they are referred to in legend. She needed a name, and so I dubbed her Jenova. The Jenova project was approved soon after. A bold initiative to resurrect the long-dead ancients. An initiative that resulted in my conception. Or rather, my creation. The crowning glory of Professor Gast's wondrous experiment.
He created you?
I should go. Mother is waiting.
Hey! Hey, hold on!
So this is where Sephiroth finds out all the information about Jenova. Again, if someone's playing this for the first time, Jenova is an ancient. These are a species or people that were around 2,000, 3,000 years ago that kind of had power to the planet. This is where materia comes from. Aerith is a true descendant of them. I'm not entirely sure if Sephiroth is a man-made descendant just from cells.
Artificial ancient?
Or actual, and then also like bred to do certain things.
Because we learned in Remake that they were actually hunting, Shinra was hunting down descendants of the ancients, right, and gathering them. So maybe Sephiroth was one of those kids that were gathered, and then kind of like more Jenova cells went into it.
We see more static. This is when Sephiroth and Cloud really get close to each other. It's the thought process in my head. You know what you know about Cloud from the original, or what you maybe remember, or a lot of people forget, or sometimes you're reading through the actual game and you're not really paying attention. You're just pressing X all the time. But there's a connection between the two, and these moments or memories that Cloud has There is something going on. Again, is it real? Is it actually happening?
Yeah, we have those questions, right? The static.
Yeah, we know that Cloud has a mother, but there's weird situations with that. And then when he's talking to Sephiroth, it's the same thing. They're connected in a way that we're trying to figure out as the game comes on. And I don't know how to, without spoilers, but what is their connection?
Yeah. Well, I think you start off with the basis, right? Like, this is a friend that you've seen as a brother. There is a relationship there Sephiroth obviously sees with Cloud, to confide in Cloud with this information. Also, we've seen how he's been treating Cloud, maybe going a bit like loose with this rookie who's supposed to be, you know, straight and serious for a pretty serious mission. I would say, like, with the troopers, he's probably a lot harder on them than he was with Cloud. So there's a soft spot Sephiroth has for Cloud here. And obviously, like, this big brother figure that Cloud has put on Sephiroth. So immediately it's close there. But then now it's like, we see when Sephiroth's walking away, like you're talking about the static, we see Jenova in one of the images as Sephiroth is walking away from Cloud. So it's like, obviously Sephiroth is proclaiming in that moment that he is joining his mother. Something else he read in those pages makes him feel like this is the mission. He's like, that was my disconnect here. It's like, wait, whoa, how do you do, like, I understand, like, having your whole world, like, kind of crumbling, but then how do you do a whole, like, 360 to another mission? Like, how did you learn about what you believe that mission with your mother is, right? That was the hard selling point for me in this moment, so I didn't quite get it. But again, with that statics, it's like when we saw Sephiroth and Cloud in Remake, when Sephiroth would randomly appear, we would see a lot of that static. So is it like a mental connection, like that they're sharing these visions together in some sense? So that's where I was kind of going with here. I'm trying to think of like what I was thinking in the moment of playing. Yeah.
I ultimately think it all boils down to something you referenced before, and it comes down to trauma. I think a lot of what Cloud experiences with the static all has to do with either traumatic events that he's trying to block out, hence what I'm kind of figuring with the mother scene and stuff like that, but also just him getting those visions of Sephiroth when Sephiroth isn't even there. So I feel like those moments are more traumatic in terms of thinking, like just feeling his presence, having that connection. I don't know how the game ends, so I don't know what ultimately that connection is. But I think the most interesting avenue that kind of points towards it being trauma is the fact that you see Sephiroth have static. Not even when Cloud's touching him, he's just standing there ruminating over the fact of what he just learned, and he's having traumatic flashbacks or stuff like that that's pointing to the experiments, Jenova. So I feel like this is ultimately a result of Hojo's experiments on both of them throughout their lives. And this is just a repercussion that they've both had to block stuff out. And when those thoughts and memories start creeping in, they get pain, they get static, and this is just the visual representation.
Or hear me out here.
I'm hearing.
Remember in Remake, there was the other Sephiroth, the ghost, the other experiments, I would like to call them, the cloaked individuals. There was a scene where Cloud saw himself in one of those figures walking by, and static occurred, right? And we kind of were like, oh wait, is like Cloud a clone? Like, what's happening here, right? Is it that the static is things that are planted in his head, right? Like, is it something that's like planted, kind of blocked out, but also like it could be a little bit of both?
Could be.
Because with everything that's happened with his mom, we saw the static there. That doesn't quite make sense to, you know, you look at the type, like, why would he have trauma seeing his mom, right?
Don't we all?
I know. He's like, oh my God, she's going to ask me to clean my room again.
Oh boy.
You know,
I have to reset a router. Like,
oh my gosh, Mom, just don't, you know? But you know, why would he have negative, like, a trauma with his mother, unless something happens to her later, right? But also it's like, then with Sephiroth, he's seeing Hojo like he was in a tank, right? Like, so it's kind of like, oh, he is kind of remembering something there that's true. If he was created by Hojo, it's kind of like that's what he's seeing, and maybe he was trying to block that out. So it's like now, like, okay, we have trauma, but maybe it's also planted because is Cloud a clone? Does, like, who was the first? Like, is Sephiroth the first experiment that Hojo created, right? Like, or was there multiple experiments? We've seen in that room there were multiple pods. I don't think an experiment is perfected in that beauty of Sephiroth with just the first try.
He's a one and done. You get called it quits after that one. They're like,
I mean,
10 out of 10, no
perfect.
notes on this guy.
Yeah.
You mentioned how you didn't think the Sephiroth turn was believable.
No, like in terms of him just, I understand like the downfall. I could buy into the fact he would want to leave Shinra. I cannot buy the fact where he smirks, my mother's waiting. Like, that is maniacal to me. That smirk in itself says evil. Where it's like, I feel like based on how we saw Sephiroth, he's not like evil in those moments. He's a hero. Yeah. He takes pictures with villagers. He would just more be like, I need to find Jenova. Like, and it would be in more innocent, I need to find Jenova. I need to make sense of it, or I'm going to kill Hojo.
Sure.
I think there's some sprinkles there for us, which is everything with Jenova, the way he acts, how calculated he is. I think he always had in his head because he hates. I think he hates Shinra,
right?
But
I think he hates Hojo.
Yes, and he hates Hojo. He hates what they're doing. So in his head, there's something holding him back from actually acting on it because he works for them, whatever. And then at this point now, he puts two and two together. He realizes, okay, I could be an experiment. And so his instinct is revenge. And especially that he is a military serviceman, I think that's where his head goes to right away. I get it. It kind of is like, oh, he just turns evil right away. But the 180, I kind of understand. I think we can see that there's something off about him.
Yeah.
That maybe something is holding him back from like going all out.
The only way I believe it is like that was just his mental breakdown. Like, you know, like he's not thinking clearly. Right. But how calculated he is, I feel like that's a weird trait to put into a calculated character.
Sure.
So after Sephiroth throws Cloud in anger, Cloud wakes up in the manor and finds out that the whole village is on fire, which is, if you remember the original game, something that is very vivid to people's memory, which is Nibelheim on fire. Sephiroth massacres the entire town. Looks like Cloud's mom is probably dead inside her house.
Which may explain the static. You know, he's retelling this story.
Sure.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
That's a possibility.
True. Sephiroth kills a man trying to help Cloud. He kills the mayor. He goes to Mount Nebel where Cloud follows
Also,
him.
Cloud run. I was so furious.
He's
I could
16.
not run.
He's 16. Doesn't know what's happening.
I
And
don't
he's his mentor.
care.
This whole time you're saying, oh, he loves his mentor so much. And now it's like, go after and kill this mother.
But he's also being pumped with Mako. Okay, he's a Shinra soldier. I'm pretty sure they were doing that already at 16. You're telling me just like a few little pieces of wood on fire falls on him and now he's like limping through the village?
I just think that from like a gameplay perspective, anytime a game's like, now we got to show this character injured. Let's just make him limp and hobble around.
Oh,
like, come on, let's go.
Yeah.
Like, I get it.
We
understand.
want to see the drama.
I honestly hated that when he first you have to walk around the whole village so slowly.
Yeah.
It's just, come on, please. And I was holding R2,
Same.
hoping that I could maybe limp a little faster, but you can't.
Yeah, and then it's like the wood it collapses, closes one area, you have to go into another area. The mayor gets beheaded.
Yeah, it's
That was and Cloud's just crawling there. That was so infuriating. I was like, "Get up, Cloud! You have a sword."
Yeah, a cool one too.
Well, he slowly goes up Mount Nebel, okay, and we see Sephiroth kill Tifa's father, which is crazy. This is just absolute destruction. Yes,
And we saw this kind of scene in Remake as well.
We did, yes. Which listen,
Static. It was staticky.
Clearly, I wasn't paying attention in the original if Tifa was wearing a cowboy outfit, because our whole conversation in that game was, why the hell is Tifa in a cowboy outfit?
Yeah.
And now this is why we get our answer.
Right.
Yeah. What happened so far on autosave? We skipped that. Yeah.
The most impressive thing about all these scenes is how the Square Enix team created absolute chaos, emotion, devastation, intensity. I don't even know what other synonyms to even say with this, but it was so intense. And I felt every moment of it. And like, take a bow, Square Enix, for that moment. It's theater.
Yeah. And also, I think because we've played as Cloud, if you've played Remake, you know how cold he could be, and he's 16 and he can't hide emotions yet. So you're seeing his face when he stumbles across Tifa over her father's body, and he's like, he is so heartbroken but also upset.
But also, you have to imagine relieved as well. Like, you just saw his entire village wiped out, decimated, and then you see his long lost friend.
Yeah.
Obviously
alive.
mourning, but alive, and you can almost imagine Cloud has this moment of thank God, like at least she made it.
Yeah.
Well, Cloud follows Sephiroth back to Jenova, and Sephiroth injures Tifa. We'll get back to the injury.
I mean, he
later.
Slices her.
Yes, and that looks
and she's bleeding.
Pretty painful.
Yeah.
But then Cloud, he runs over to Sephiroth.
Here I am. Your son. Mother, together we will reclaim our world, and I know exactly how we can do that. The Promised Land.
Sephiroth!
Mother, they have come again. The ones who robbed you of the planet. Your planet. But there's no need to be sad, Mother. Because I'm here for you. Now and forever.
You killed my mom. You killed Tifa. My village. My home.
They were mine by right. This planet too, for I have been chosen.
I believed in you. No. Not you! Whoever the hell you are!
I'm just remembering something here, but at this point, when it looks like Sephiroth and Cloud are going to show down, I got up from my phone. I'm like, all right, boss battle time, and then it didn't happen at all.
They did a surprise on us. They're like, oh, you think you're going to fight? You can't handle him yet.
I was sad. But this is incredibly heartbreaking for Cloud. You can see on his face that he looks up to Sephiroth so much, but he's so heartbroken. Cam, I want to go back to, I can see that you are not happy with how much Sephiroth has turned into like this crazy maniacal character. And I actually wrote down on my notes, I said, does Sephiroth really want to reclaim his birthright and rule with Jenova over the world? I'm not so sold on Sephiroth being completely evil.
Yeah.
So it is interesting to me, but what I'm thinking of is he must have read things that he didn't read out loud.
Yeah.
But probably the
information
horrific things
yeah.
that Shinra has done forever, and it probably made him go mental. That's my only thought.
Well, maybe he found out that they killed the ancients.
Yeah.
That's the thing. That would be the thing that'd be like, oh shoot, like they killed, like the ancients died and they've been hunting them down.
Yeah.
And those are my people. Right? Like, that's what I'm thinking. But in this moment, I was like, he lost his mind. Like, this, it's what Cloud said. Like, this is not Sephiroth, right? And it is that breakdown. And this is all I'm thinking at this point is like, yeah, he's full crazed right now. He is not in his right mind. The weird thing is, though, when we're seeing like Sephiroth face off, like he is so quick. When you play as Sephiroth, he could have killed Cloud so quickly in that moment. And it kind of like had the telling. There was already blood on Cloud's hands when he picks up the sword because of Tifa, right? It's like, it was kind of like foreshadowing, like this would have been Cloud's demise, right? So it's like these flashes of Jenova, though.
Very interesting.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Very interesting. I don't trust this story fully.
I don't know. I feel like there's so much we can glean off all of this. And like, again, speculation station is here. I'm all aboard it. And it goes back to something I brought up earlier in the show. It was the 3 timelines. To me, I have a feeling, and again, I have no context to what may happen. I could be totally off here. But I feel like at some point, Sephiroth has to be told that in a different timeline, he loses. Because otherwise,
we got Doctor Strange up in here.
Because he's aware of destiny, he's aware of the whispers. He knows that at some point the timeline has to branch off for him to achieve his destiny of, getting the life stream, becoming a god, saving his mother, and everything like that. So to me, I feel like in that time when Cloud and Sephiroth are away, he's in the mansion. He's come to the conclusion that, hey, things have to go a certain way. Cloud has to stay alive because otherwise he could have just beaten him in that fight to begin with. Cloud has to stay alive to get to X, Y, and Z. They have to fight against destiny. They have to.
But do you think he's thinking all that then? That point?
But I think that he has enough of those like seeds planted to know I am on a mission at this point. This is why I'm going to be doing this stuff. Like he's almost on like a self-proclaimed mission at this point.
So I don't know about the connection. I don't know if he knows or maybe thinks. And anyway, I just think it's purely on his belief of this promised land now all of a sudden.
Right.
Everything that he's read in the basement, I think, leads back to him talking about the Mako stream and how Shinra has, depleted whatever it is. He probably has seen that the world is going to come to an end if I don't stop it. So he might have a hero complex right here, but it seems like he's going crazy. But what he's thinking is, I need to get rid of these Shinra people.
But did you have to kill the whole village?
I think that's where it starts.
Sure.
I'm not saying that that's what should happen, but I think in his crazed mind, he's like, everyone is to be blamed. And now I'm going to take over the world and everything's going to start anew. These people dying isn't going to matter.
Right.
Because now I'm literally going to kill everyone because I'm going to start a new world order, basically.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. Again, it sounds crazy, but I feel like they kind of tried to sprinkle in a little of his reasoning throughout this chapter.
And I think here it's like the reason why it doesn't make sense is because we are not supposed to understand it, right? Like
fair,
it's like he is so crazy having this breakdown. He is not thinking correctly. Like it makes no sense.
Speaking of make no sense, I don't want to keep going on because there's a lot of theories and thoughts we can have, but I am confused. He grabs Jenova here in this moment, but in Remake, he grabs Jenova because he doesn't have Jenova. What happened from him having Jenova to then losing Jenova and then having to get her again?
Yeah. I was saying that. I was like, how many times is he going to steal Jenova?
Right.
Right? So is this is this Cloud of this timeline? That's my question.
Wait, what?
Is this Cloud that's retelling this story of this timeline? Because is it in maybe another timeline?
Oh boy.
Well, we're all over the place.
The multiverse of madness.
Who knows what to expect?
I'm sorry, guys, but we're not done this chapter. There's more, and there's more questions. That's going to make you start to, think about your own life and maybe if you're making the right choices. But we'll find out, and we're going to... I think we're going to have a lot more questions on the next segment, so you want to listen to this.
Hey, Aerith? You awake?
Barely. Why?
Was wondering, what's Cloud been doing these past 5 years? Where's he been?
And you're asking me this?
Just had a feeling you'd know.
Probably did at one point. All that stuff was taken from me, though. Or maybe erased?
By whispers?
Yeah.
Maybe that's why.
Why what?
This is gonna sound crazy, but as far as I know, Cloud was never in Nibelheim 5 years ago.
What is she?
Can't believe I'm having this conversation with you, but here we are. Here, look. My scar. That proof enough? After you left, Zangan found me. He's the one who brought me to the clinic. He risked his life carrying me out of the reactor and down the river. Wasn't just him, though. There's the doctor who operated on me all night, and the nurses who looked after me for days on end. I'm here now because they were there for me then. And where were you again? In fact, where have you been this whole time? For 5 years.
You know I can't tell you that.
Of course you can't.
All right. I think after watching these clips, we have more questions than answers. I wrote down here, Zach's involvement. Who is Cloud? What does he remember? Why is there static that always appears? What's he thinking about the past? What's his connection with Sephiroth and Zach? Why doesn't Tifa remember who he is? Was she dead? Was she not dead?
Where was he for 5 years?
That's also a big point. So I'll try to break it down a little bit here.
Okay.
With Zach's involvement, okay, we can't really spoil any of that, so we won't. But we have Tifa and Aerith talking to each other. She says that Cloud wasn't around 5 years ago, which Cam said while we were watching this clip. Why did she say that in the first place?
So
during this
irritating.
Whole storytelling.
Why didn't, or like,
why
like,
is this now a question?
Like, why is, like, she's like, you came to my house, but she, like, when you look back on the questions from the present day, she's asking as Cloud's telling this story, it does make sense. Like, she's just trying to be like, why are you lying? Why are you always lying? You know? But my irritation is she was planning on telling him just now in that cutscene.
Right.
And she did not. They have us on a string. Square has us on a, Square Enix has us on a string, and we're waiting for those answers, and we don't have them.
So this is where I think the whispers come into play, where everything is off kilter because of everything we saw in Remake, that it's not what it seems. Things are happening. Multiverses are happening. Things are maybe coming together again. Maybe we have one Cloud from one dimension that's in this story, because the main thing we take away from this is Tifa hasn't seen Cloud for 5 years, and he has no explanation on that. He never explains what's going on. And every time since the first game, every time someone mentions those 5 years, he gets the static. So was he experimented on this during this time? What's going on here? The most confusing thing I have in this entire clip segment is then Sephiroth showing up in his memory and saying, I killed Tifa. Right. Why is Tifa still here?
So he was showing up. Okay. There's so many questions I'm questioning myself. He showed up in his memory.
Even here?
In his memory? Or he showed up Now I'm confused.
Well,
no,
I
he's
think-
not showing
He
up
showed
for
up,
real.
yeah.
No,
he's not showing up for
because
real.
I think that's all indicated with the static. Anytime that there's a static
Yeah.
and Sephiroth appears, to me that always indicates some sort of trauma and some sort of
Or
like
connection.
or a connection. Yeah, there could be some sort of connective tissue
like a
where he's
telepathic-
not there, but he's
Yeah.
speaking to Cloud in some way.
Doesn't Sephiroth have like in his attacks, like what is his telepathy something? Like one of his attacks.
He does have
kind of-
I don't think that is related.
But no.
I agree with Steve in
I
that
think
case.
he's using telepathy on Cloud and talking to him, answers, problem solved. No, but yeah, it doesn't. I don't understand. And kind of with like maybe he has this goal, and maybe because he is able to see all different outcomes of what happened, he knows he has to instigate
Exactly.
some sort of divide.
Because we have seen that in the past in Remake where he is trying to, again, dangle something in front of Cloud of like, you're come this way almost. Like he is guiding Cloud in some respect, both physically and emotionally. And I think, again, that's kind of where we're getting at here is that Sephiroth is kind of playing the instigator in so many
the puppet
regards.
master.
Exactly. Because he knows in some fashion things have to go a certain way. All the chess pieces have to go a certain way for him to be able to win in this scenario.
And we know Aerith knew because when the Dementors, the Whisperers, they were going around her, she saw something in Remake. She saw something and she was acting weird towards Cloud after that moment because she knew something about Cloud that he didn't know about himself. And then she lost that memory when the whole thing happened.
Yeah. There's also
so there's an ancient link though there between Sephiroth and Aerith, right? So I think there was that understanding that Aerith knows, and that's why in the cutscene we saw, or in that scene where Tifa tells her, Tifa asked Aerith like, "Where was he? I thought you'd know." And Aerith's like, "I would have known, but I don't have maybe I did, but I don't have my memories," right? So I think there's probably maybe a deeper connection between Aerith and Sephiroth that we need to look into. I'm gonna put it on my little.
They're siblings.
Hey, I don't know, man.
So, is it clone Cloud? Is it the Mako poisoning? Because a lot of these robed men who follow Sephiroth or whatever it is, there's always some connection towards them. They are former soldiers who are dealing with that Mako poisoning. And that's why they are the way that they are. Is Cloud just turning into one of those? And he's not necessarily maybe a clone, but he is just poisoned with the Mako energy and is now turning into whatever Sephiroth he uses. Because we've seen before where Sephiroth shows up and then what happens? They defeat Sephiroth and then the cloaked person is there.
Yeah.
So is he just turning into a Sephiroth clone to be used by Sephiroth?
Well, it's interesting too. I remember in Remake, it might have been I feel like it's Aerith that says, "Oh, your eyes are so green" or something that, right? And
because
he's
of
like,
the
it's the soldiers, they get the Mako in them, right? But maybe there's more to that than just signing up for to be a soldier. All I know, I'm confused. I want green eyes. That's the only reason I signed up. But yeah, like I don't know.
Is there though, as we went through chapter 1, are they trying to tell us something in the way that they told this story? We went from Zack and a different timeline, allegedly, to then the past, learning more about Sephiroth, to then the present. These are all not only different timelines in terms of like dimensions, I guess, I don't know how to explain, but also past, present, future.
Yeah.
What does...
I think what they're trying to tell us is that, hey, you're going to have so many questions into this game. Strap in for 70 hours, 100 hours before we're going to even answer one of them.
Well, I think they're like, off the bat, they're setting, and we saw a little bit of this in Remake too. They start off the entire game with a news broadcast, and we see the news broadcast a few times. But what's different about this one is the clipping of how the feed goes out. They're static. You see the the offline bars show up.
Yes.
Then it clips out. I think that's like the developers telling us, and then we see that again, like with how these memories they're staticked out, kind of like a TV. I think they're saying, like, you know, how we question like not everything on TV is real, and we hear. I think it was someone in the crowd where Kari was like, oh, you know, do you believe that? Like, what's happening actually there? And they're like, well, not everything they show is real. I think it's actually the developers telling us, do not believe everything that this game is showing us, because it's edited by someone. We're seeing it through someone's lens. And I would suggest that lens is Sephiroth's.
That's deep.
Wow. Okay. Wow. Mic drop. I don't even know.
Yeah, I can't even follow that up.
Just saying. Tune in for the last episode when I'm completely wrong.
Mechanics I want to get to quickly, but before that, Jenova. What exactly is Jenova? Is Jenova alive? It's a specimen, but it's in a tank.
Well, she's an ancient, right?
She's an ancient, but she's one of the ancients from the past. Was she dug up? Are they just... It's not a fossil, obviously.
Well, it's stasis. They say she's in stasis.
She's in stasis.
And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but Sephiroth even says that in the text he was reading, that they were looking at experiments in terms of resurrecting her. So she's dead.
I don't think she's... Is she?
I don't know if it's dead or...
in sleep, like hibernation.
At least not around to mother this child, so to speak. So I think, he's got a mommy complex. And at this point, he just wants to bring her back to life. He just wants his mom. Yeah, he just wants a hug.
He's just scared. You know, his world
just scared little boy.
He just wants a hug from his mom. No, but also it's kind of creepy. We see her eyes open.
Right.
Like, for someone in stasis, like, how did she just, like, how did she end up there? With her eyes open, like she wasn't sleeping.
But I do think that's a visual cue of that there is some sort of
mental link between.
Not only mental link, but like a visual cue if someone's dead, their eyes are usually closed. So I think that's just a visual link
that she's not actually
giving,
dead.
For one, giving some sort of humanity to Jenova, but also to indicate, hey, there is some sort of justification on his mission of let's bring her back.
Yeah.
Also, what if she's talking to Sephiroth, and this is part of the reason why he's going crazy?
Like a little Bates Motel action.
Well, like the whole, like the idea of the ancients that like we learned a little bit about them, but there's so much more to learn. And Eric even told us a little bit about the ancients, but they seem like they have this extraordinary power to somehow talk to the life energy, right? Yeah. So it's like maybe Jenova's able to, because she's so ancient, she's able to actually talk to other beings through that life energy. And maybe that's something that Sephiroth is using now when he shows up, and it's not necessarily a memory, but it's like he's actually making that connection to talk to Cloud through this life energy.
The live stream,
yeah.
But Steve, thank you so much for joining
I really
us.
appreciate it.
Honestly, you may have not been a fan of Final Fantasy, but I christened you a new person in this fandom because you absolutely crushed it today. We appreciate you being here. Before we go again, if you want to plug where you are, where people can find you.
Yeah, I'll make it easy for everyone. Just find me across the internet at Vegvari. And I appreciate you guys inviting me, talking all about Rebirth. This is a lot of fun.
All right, Cam, next week's episode, we're getting into the nitty gritty. We had questions before.
Don't tell me there's more questions.
We're going to have a lot more questions.
Oh.
Yeah.
It's going to be a long one.
Funny, isn't it? How small it looks.
It is far away.
So, did something happen between you and Tifa? Don't look so shocked. We're roommates, you know.
She say something?
Not about you two, no. Still, I can tell. I would have given anything to have a friend when I was growing up. Don't take her for granted.
On next week's episode, we just all need to stay a little calm. AutoSave is produced and hosted by Camille Salazar-Hadaway and myself, Nick Andrade. The show is also produced by Dylan Wilson. Gameplay and additional elements provided by Chris Seitzer. Executive producer, Clayton Hansler. You can follow the show at Autosave Podcast on Twitter and Autosave Pod on Instagram, YouTube, and Twitch. You can subscribe to the show wherever you're listening to it right now, and if it happens to be Apple Podcasts, kindly leave us a rating and review, but only if it's good. Autosave is a Soda original, hosted on the Soda Podcast Network.